soon after the Yom Tif, the Rebbe would himself be mishtatif in the Kines Torah and to bring, and the Rebbe would say a sicha, especially an Indian that was shaykh to the Kines Torah. So Baruch Hashem, we have a spuz to have a Kines Torah here in Yeshiva for the last few years, after every Yom Tif, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. And today we have with us, besides some speakers from the yeshiva itself, we also have with us some Pasha guests. So we'll start by asking Oberlander, who's the Harav, the Gedalya, and he could share with us.
Baruch Hashem, Shalom Hashem. Welcome back to the yeshiva. Baruch Hashem. Choshev yeshiva. Ribe Talmidim, Ma'al Mekodesh, and a wonderful staff dedicated. Choshev Rosh Yeshiva, Mashpia. With such a staff, if you don't steig, then something's wrong with you. So make sure es kimt a git zman, a iber yur. It should be a Zman which is come face will see. A Zman was which we filled the time and is gewachsen. I want to address a noise which is a very common noise, common kshala. The noise is much bigger than we're going to talk, and we'll just bring a rose than the kiddush of it. But a lot of people, we know, let's start like this. We know that in Hilchah Shabbos is do klulom. It's do a iser, chazalom gemacht a iser, they made a iser to eat refu b'Shabbos. Chodesh yesh b'skuna, then it's no question, you could do anything and everything. A yid could be mechal Shabbos, chodesh yesh b'skuna. Chodesh ein b'skuna, a goy could do anything and everything. A yid could do no is the rabonans. Then there's a third category which is called a person which is yeshle maichish, v'hoylech b'shik. That means he's not sick that he falls into the bed. He has a headache, he has some kind of pain. So Chazal ham ge'asert that you cannot take a refiyah in Shabbos. That means a person that has a headache, a person that has a headache, he could not take Tylenol, he could not take any medication. You don't take medication on Shabbos. Now, the question is, a person has a headache, is not falling into bed. Can he take Tylenol on Shabbos? That's what I want to address. According to what we just said, if a person has a maichish, that means a headache, you cannot make and take any refuah on Shabbos. But the Matthias is people are very mindful and they are taking Tylenol on Shabbos, Akamol, Tylenol, Advil. So is there a heter, or we say they do it but it's awesome? That's what I want to address the Nikida. Now, why did Chazal aser refu b'Shabbos? The reason is because Chazal had a fair. All the refiyas, they had to take all kind of herbs, all kind of leaves and whatever, grass, and used to grind it and make the finna medication. Now, if you do it in Shabbos, you're over on the iser of toichen, iser daraisa, taking anything and grinding it, the iser of toichen. So Chazal said, if I'm going to let people should take the refiyah of Shabbos, a medication, I'm afraid you are going to make the refiyah, you're going to make the actual pill, and then what happens? You give me over Eisa Teuch. So therefore the asset to make a refiyah, take a refiyah b'Shabbos. Now we could say that nowadays, when nobody could make medication, because we don't know the chokhmah of medication, this is pharmaceutical companies with billions of dollars, they make the medication. a person himself cannot make a vacation. Not only cannot make a vacation, it's one of the biggest crimes of making a vacation. So maybe we have some kind of heter. So I want to delve into this for a minute. Do we have a heter that basically today's day nobody can make a vacation? So therefore, fall to make the desire. So in order to understand if there's such a concept, let's move on to a separate segment, and we'll come back to this in the end. There is a halacha, there's a Mishnah, which we all know, in Masechtas Baitza, I'm a tapchin, I'm a ragdin, yeah? I'm a sapkin, the Shabbos. You cannot dance on Shabbos, you cannot clap on Shabbos, yeah? We all know, clapping on Shabbos is not a pashta zach. It's a past in Shechanor, it's in the test. You cannot dance on Shabbos, you cannot clap on Shabbos. But Lamasa, we all patch on Shabbos. Frat Chasidim. And we all dance on Shabbos. So what's the heter? What's going on? Gemara says, the Mishnah says, I'm a ragin, I'm a trapchin. The Gemara itself, in Masechtas Baitza, Lamates, brings Ruva asked Abaya, you said, I'm a trapchin, I'm a ragin, you cannot dance and sing in Shabbos. We see the whole world was dancing and singing Shabbos. That means even then, they were all Chasidim, and they were all dancing in Shabbos. So when Ruva asked Abaya, what kind of business? He said, you cannot. Look, everybody's doing it. So his answer was, Hanach lehem, leave them. Mitav shi yeshoigigim, or yimazidim. If I'm going to tell them you're not allowed to dance on Shabbos, imagine you go to 770 and you say, the boys say Shabbos, you cannot dance. They'll kick you out. So they're not gonna stop dancing. So mitav shi yeshogim, don't tell them. They'll be a shoigim. They won't be a ma'aser. This is what the Abaya answered for Ruva. That means it's not a heter. It is only that mitav shi yeshogim. That's basically the Nikida. So if you look at the Gemara says that it's only mitav shi yeshogim. That means it's also to patch and also dance on Shabbos. You look in the Shechanor, Simashin Lamates, Zug the Mechaber. I'm a trap chilakas kafakar. You cannot clap, patch your hands. Ulemasapkin, ulemaragdin, gzairish and misang klashir. Why is the Isra you cannot dance, you cannot sing? Because the Chazal was afraid that if you are going to permit dancing in Shabbos, he's going to come with his guitar, he's going to come with his fiddle, and something is going to tear, or somebody's in the middle of finishing up to build a new guitar, and he's going to finish it in Shabbos. So therefore, maybe he's going to fix his klashir, his musical instrument. So therefore, it's also to dance. Because I'll make it exactly also to dance. Zog the Mechaber, it's also to dance. Why? What else? You cannot drum on the table, which a lot of people like to do when they sing a song. Because I'll ask it. Zog to them the Remu comes and adds on, and I will see that you are dancing and clapping. Nobody's moicha. Mitav shi yeshogim. So the Remu says, mitav shi yeshogim. So it's not mitav, it's also mitav shi yeshogim. This is what the Remu says in the first text. So according to this, we have no heter to dance and clap on Shabbos. But we look in Toysus and Masechtas Baitza. Toysus says like this: I'm a tapchin, you cannot dance, clap and dance. Shemi sang klashir. Zuk Toysus, merely the don shure, we are allowed to clap and dance. The dafke biyamayim, only at that time, shoy bekim last klashir. They had the knowledge and they know how to make klashir. Nowadays, we cannot make a klashir. Yeah, there's companies who make klashir, but a person himself cannot make a fiddle, cannot make a guitar. So therefore, the Toysvos, we have no problem, only be in mind. The Remu brings this down. After the Remu brings the Remu adds, because we hope they have no desire to and therefore, the Remu says, maybe this is the heter why today's day we dance and clap, because we are relying on Toysus. Toysus says that it's not a problem because today's day we cannot dance. Now, according to this, we see such a concept that if today's day we cannot make it, then falls back the Gezayra. Now, it's not so partial because the Bas Yosef itself on Shil Amates asked the question, we all know that whatever Chazal made the Gezaira, even though today's day we don't have the reason for it, but you cannot just stop that Gezaira. Only if you're a Bezdin, which is you are such a prestige Bezdin as the Bezdin who made the Gezaira. That means you had as much people and you had such a big Talmid Chachama. But if not, you cannot stop just decide today's day it's not relevant. So that B'si Yosef asks this question. The B'si Yosef puts a line, maybe Toises holds like Rabbi Nitam, like Abba Gili. And Gili, like Abba Gili, we have a halacha that whenever water is open, it's uncovered for a while, you cannot drink it. Why? We are afraid that a nochash, a venom snake will come, drink from the water, put in venom into the water, and then it's askas and foshes. So Chazal said you cannot drink anything which is gili. Nowadays, in places where we don't have snakes, which is it's probably Kingston also, but then in Rockland, all not Midwest is probably there is, but over here there's no snakes. Anybody is makbid on gili? There are some who makbid on gili, but most of the people are not makbid on gili. So Rabbi Tam says why? Because since Chazal, when they made the Gezaira, did not make a Gezaira that it's osur without a reason. They said in a place where there is snakes, you cannot have gili. But in that Gezaira is built in that in a place which there isn't snakes, it's not a problem. So that's why Rabbi Tam holds it's not a problem of gili. So the B'si Yosef says maybe we could apply this concept also to dancing. In the Gezaira was that only in a place where people could make musical instruments is the Gezaira. In a place which there isn't, you can't make musical instruments, it's not the Gezaira. So if it's built in the Gezaira, automatically, it's not your Mavat the Gezaira. It's Melechila, they made the Gezaira only in places which you could make instruments. This is what the B'si Yosef says, but the B'si Yosef doesn't like this answer, and that's why La'alocha doesn't bring this answer, and he says you could not dance and you could not clap on Shabbos. B'si Yosef Paskins, although he gives some kind of an answer on these Toises, but Lamaisa he doesn't accept the La'alocha, and the B'si Yosef Paskins you cannot dance and clap.
Would plugging in a keyboard make a difference nowadays?
That's part of it's not the Gezaira. That's a different Gezaira. We cannot make new Gezairas. The Gezaira was Shem Yisakn Klashir. Plugging in is not Yisakn. So according Akapunim, but Akapunim, that's the B'si Yosef which didn't like it. But Saf the Remu brings the Yesh Amrav that you could rely on it. And the reason is because this water. It is not you are changing the Gezaira. It's built into the Gezaira that in a place which there isn't Nechoshen, it's not osur. The same as a place which you cannot make the instruments, it's not osur. So the B'si Yosef, the Remu does bring this heter. There's another heter also, which is the Torres Chesed, the famous Torres Chesed, which was a Talmud of the Tzemach Tzedek. He brings the new heter, and he says it's a nice heter, and it's built on a solid ground. Although he himself doesn't want to rely on it on La'alocha, but he says anytime when Chazal made a Gezaira and they specifically said the reason of the Gezaira, that means the Chazal wanted to tell you only when the Gezaira is up, it's still relevant. If the Gezaira is not relevant, we have no problem. What's his raya? His raya is that we know that Machlokes Rishonim, if you could wear talis shel pishtim, Pashtur Machaber Paskins, that you have to wear a talis or a talis cotton has to be from wool, and that's why all Chassidim, Akapunim, Chassidia Anash, Lubavitch wear wool talis cottons because B'si Yosef held like that. Rishonim, that's Minan Torah, it's only wool. There are other Rishonim which hold that you cannot wear a talis shel pishtim. You cannot wear a talis shel pishtim. Any pishtim is linen. you cannot have a talis mitzvah, putting on tzitzis on a talis which is linen. Zug the Rosh, the Rosh, if you know a little bit history, the Rosh was an Ashkenazic Rishon. But he had to run away from Ashkenaz, and he ran to Sfard. He was a while together with the Rashba took him in, and he was a lot of into the Sfardish Menugim, because he was living a lot of years after he ran away from Ashkenaz, he was living in Sfard. So the Rosh writes, I came to Sfard, and I see a lot of people, most of the people, do wear talais mishal pishtim, and they put on tzitzis, and it's against the Rabbeinu Tam. So the Rosh says maybe they rely on of the Rif, which the Rif holds that you should put on tzitzis on talais mishal pishtim. But then he says like this. He says like this. The reason why we don't put on tzitzis on talais mishal pishtim, because pishtim is linen. Tzitzis, if it has tchailis is only wool. Tchailis has to be from wool. If you have wool and linen, that's Shabbos. So how could we put on tchailis on tzitzis? We know there's a beferish, the Torah says, Gedilim Tassel and a silver Shabbos, Gedilim Tassel that the mitzvah of tzitzis overrides the mitzvah of the Isser of Shabbos, and therefore tzitzis could be for Shabbos. Now, the Rishonim were afraid that if Laila loves man tzitzis, yeah, at night is not as man tzitzis, or whenever there's a time that you're not mechiv to put on tzitzis, and you're going to wear a talal shel pishtu which has tzitzis, now you're not mekam the mitzvah. You're not mekam the mitzvah, then you're over of the Isser of Shabbos. Therefore, they made talal shel pishtu you cannot put on tzitzis, because when they had tchailas, it was linen and wool, and that was Shabbos, so therefore, no talal shel pishtu you don't put on tzitzis. Kim the Rosh says, maybe in Sfard they put on tzitzis because nowadays we don't have tchailas. And since we don't have tchailas, so we don't have the Gedalya. Because it cannot be in of Shabbos because we don't have tchailas. So therefore we can rely on this. So the Rosh has, you can just take the Chazal and change a menig or a Isser. So the Rosh says, anytime when the Isser is Yediyah and it's not relevant anymore, then we could dismantle, so to speak, that Isser. So Zugi Torah's Chesed, from this we see that whenever they tell you exactly why the Isser is and what we did the Isser, so therefore, whenever it is not relevant, the Isser is bottled. This is the Torah's Chesed's Pshat, another reason why we could dance. So since the Chazal told us clearly that the reason why you cannot make you cannot dance because you're afraid to make instruments, so the Chazal, so to speak, said clearly there's the reason, and whenever there isn't there's the reason, you could be a mic. That's the second. But he himself, does not want to go with this Hetel Meiser because he says, who will be Machlab, what is the reason which Chazal said, which is clearly Tam Yediyah, so therefore he's not comfortable with it, only with Sarif. So at least we have two Hetayrim as of now. One is the Tam of Isser is Yediyah, therefore it's not relevant. Second reason is the Chazal built in a system that wherever it's not relevant, even then in their times, the Isser was the Chal, so therefore is the head. So now, the Marshal says each reason is not that strong, but the Tziraf, you have a Tziraf and you have also Tzorich Mitzvah, because dancing with Tzorich Mitzvah, you could be a Michael. So now that's the Indian of dancing in Shabbos. That's why you have Hetayrim, you can dance on Shabbos. Now let's take this Hetayrim and try to apply it by Rafiyah. When it comes to Rafiyah, is again, Chazal told us clearly that the reason why we cannot have Rafiyah in Shabbos is because I'm afraid Shem Schik Samamunah. So Chazal told us clearly the Tam Yediyah that Schik Samamunah. Since nowadays nobody knows how to make Schik Samamunah, and not over that it's even illegal. So therefore we have the reason of Tam Yediyah. Also the other thing is also relevant. Or we have also the first time. Because Chazal told us a place which we could make Chikis Hamamunam, a place where they used to make the medication. Yeah, let's say for instance in China, every old Alta Baba knew exactly how to make the medication. So therefore, such a place is a problem. But even my Chazal, countries or Medinas or which didn't know how to do it, like so therefore we can apply these two items also to Refi Shabbos. But Lamaisa, the Ketzois HaShulchan brings down this heter. This is what we just spoke. And it says, I don't want to rely only on this, just on this. Only if you have noch a tzirif. If you have other tzirifim, or if a person is more than a maichesh, but he's he's paranoid, he's OCD. Do I have? Am I in the category of Cholishayim Baskuna, or am I in the category of maichesh? So whenever you have a suffix, you could be Michael. But he doesn't want to give a clear heter that it's okay. But we have a Chivas of Kivi Yosef Schlesinger. Yeah, the famous Kivi Yosef was a grandson of Vil Karamai. Why is he so famous? Because he's the person who blew Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah Shabbos in Shlam. He used to blow a shofar, and it was a whole balagan. We know it's not. So he's a famous, so to speak. So he says, I have no issue. Today's day, the whole Shchikah Tzamamunim is not a big deal for me, and he gives the Tayrem very easy. So at least, what the Ketzos HaShulchan says on the Metzirev, the Kivi Yosef is a little bit more lenient that you could rely whenever you need to take medication to be more lenient. Okay, but I wouldn't pass this to think to the masses that you can take all kinds of things, because after all, we have to understand that it's a shtikl loss. But I have another heter, which is an interesting heter, which I'm going to conclude. There is a interesting psak from Rabbi Yonis Shtaib. Rabbi Yonis Shtaib was one of the biggest poiskai of our generation right after the war. A lot of aginas after the war, he was martyred. He was a giant, Rabbi Yonis Shtaib. Now, the Bayer Moshe brings in his sefer, I hear a shmir that Rabbi Yonis Shtaib was very lenient that the person could take, he said, Tylenol you could take on Shabbos. He says, why? It says it's Machal Briyim. Today's day, for everything, people only thinks that maybe he has a headache, he takes Tylenol. And not only that, there are people who, if they're afraid that they're going to get a cold, they'll take Tylenol. Or, for anything, he says these words, everybody has a bowl in his house full of Tylenol. And whenever, he feels something, he takes a Tylenol. So he says that's called Machal Briyim, which is very hard to understand. What does that mean? But after all, he's afraid maybe he's going to get sick, but it's not Machal Briyim. And I don't think any one of you will take just a Tylenol. Advil maybe, yeah, it has aspirin in the older people maybe. But what kind of heter? So I thought. So he says he said like this. I heard it from people. I would have relied on Rabbi Yonis if I would have known for sure that he gave this heter. But since I didn't hear it from real good source, I don't want to rely on it. So in the next volume he writes, I heard from Moshe Maishlach, another poisik, which told me that he heard it clearly that Rabbi Yonis was martyred. So Moshe says, okay, then we could rely on it. But what is the svura? What is the svura that you could rely on it because he's what does it mean? So I think the Nikita Sedurim is like this. And I'll make it very short because even though it's the Chavislas Marach, but just the Nikita. The Shlomo Kliger writes, and it brings a couple of rayas, and it says like this. There's a statement by people that a person who started to take medication before Shabbos can take it on Shabbos. He says people say such a thing. And he tries to, justify it. And he brings rayas from halacha that we see whenever the refuyo you started already before Shabbos, you could continue on Shabbos. He brings a Retia. The Chazal say that a Retia which you had on Shabbos, before Shabbos, and it fell down on the floor, you cannot put it back. Not because of Shikis Mamuna, because of other reason, but Shikis Mamuna there isn't because he had it in Far Shabbos. He has a couple of rayas that we see, that Retia that you started before Shabbos, there's not even no more a problem of Shikis Mamuna. So he says, so therefore, this is why his justification, what the people say, that if you started before Shabbos, you could continue it on Shabbos. Now, what's the svura? The Nikita Sedurim is like this. The Nikita Sedurim is, Whenever, it brings a very nice ride, because the Gemara says that in the Mikdash they used to take gauze pads and put on a book, on a market. But regularly you cannot do it, only if you did it already before Shabbos. If you did it before Shabbos, you can put it back because it's not a problem. Why is it? Since you put it back, you start before Shabbos, people know that basically that the fee is it's made before Shabbos. Since the fee is made before Shabbos, there's no strict Samunah. So it says, what do we see over here? We see a very interesting Nayisah, that whenever it was done before Shabbos already, it is as if it's a Gilidas that it's not like because you started already before Shabbos. So since you started before Shabbos, we have no issue of it. And he builds it up very nicely with rice, with Sachen. So therefore he says a person started medication before Shabbos, he can be mamshich in Shabbos. So I think that this is basically the Yisod that wouldn't fit Björn Steif. The kids in the Urim is not because you have a bowl and everybody takes Tylenol. So I think it's the kid, and if you look in the words of Rabbi Moshe, you can push it in. That since every household has Tylenol, every household has Advil. This is staple items for every household. It's not a medication which a person has antibiotic has to go out to the pharmacy and buy it. It is a staple item which everybody has in his house. So since everybody has it in his house, it is as if you started on Shabbos, before Shabbos. Because why before Shabbos when you start you could continue on Shabbos? It's only because since Nicker Aduber that you didn't do it on Shabbos, you made it before Shabbos. So whenever it's Nicker that you didn't do it on Shabbos, falls Veshchik Samamunam. So since it falls Veshchik Samamunam, you can use it on Shabbos, be mamshich. So the same will apply by us. A medication, and that's why this heter will only be on Tylenol and Advil. It's not like the Reb Kiva Yosef's heter, which it's a free for all our medications. No, only a medication which every household holds because it's a staple item in every household. So therefore, when you have medication, everybody knows it's made before Shabbos. So therefore, in such a case, we have another tzirah of taking medication. So again, now we have a three tzirif. We have the tzirif of Tam Yediyah, which the Torah Chesed says. We have the Tam, the first Tam, which the Remu says, Botla Tam, with the Hezber of the Tzesha Shilchem. And it comes over here, by this piece, we have a second heter, that basically it's medication, which is a medication is household, and everybody has it before Shabbos, so it goes into the category of medication which you had before Shabbos, or you started already before Shabbos. And therefore, we could rely on this heter. But still, all this in Yonam, we could rely on this heter that even when a person has a headache, it's not no mishkal, but he has a good headache, then he can be Michael to take a Tylenol or Advil in Shabbos.
The same thing goes for Tums and stuff like
What?
The same thing goes for Tums and like heartburn.
I don't know if every household has Tums. So it's a mitzvah, you know. In my house, there's no Tums.
Pain could be worse.
So, the what?
The pain of acid reflux could be worse than the headache.
Yeah, but then maybe it goes into Geder of Nufel. I don't know if it goes to Wilfred Mishnah, then it's Tamas ahead. But well, this is where I think that Yesh Mukam Lehukl, again, this is the heter, not like the Kiv Yosef, not like the Tzesa Shilchem, which gives it a broader heter. Of Tylenol and Advil, which is a household item, we can be more lenient in Shabbos. Beschis Shmir Shabbos and Mazor Chazan, Sie Shom Nebra Yisroel, Beschis Shmir Shabbos steht nicht Yisroel Nigal, Yisroel Nigalem, so Mazor Chazan, the Gila Mitte Verschleim ist beim Heire wie meine Mama.